Hello and welcome to our presentation on Adrienne Rich by Angel, Kobe, Sam, and Evan. Before we start, let me give you all some information about her early stages of life. She was born May 16th, 1929 in Baltimore, Maryland to her two parents Arnold Rich and Helen Jones Rich, both of which had professions in the pathology and music fields. Through her early years, her favorite reads were from Victorian poets and modernist writers. And later on, while she attended Radcliffe College, she was able to publish her first poetry collection. Her early work of the 1950s was more in line with the formalist ideas she would criticize in the future, such as the Diamond Cutters and other poems. Now let's move on to the struggles. Like many, as time progresses, struggles can occur, for which she had dealt with. One of these struggles came after the marriage with her husband, Alfred Haskell. This relationship put a mental strain on her over the years, which was made evident by her writings portraying the same tensions within that relationship. Another struggle she had dealt with was the patriarchal society of the time, which meant that her personal life regarding her marriage mirrored that aspect of society, making her view of the restrictions women had regarding liberty and the roles they were limited to in society became radical for the time.
There were many things that influenced Adrienne Rich. Her personal life reflected many of the struggles many women at the time felt in regards to marriage and motherhood. The influence of motherhood can be highlighted by her essay of Women-Born Motherhood as Experience and Institution, which she wrote in 1976, which had critiques on the roles mothers were expected to fulfill while being confined, losing independence, and many sacrifices that they're also willing to make. Some of Adrienne Rich's notable achievements were when she was selected by W. H. Auden, an influential poet of his own right, for the Yale Youngsters Poets Award in 1951, the National Book Award for Poetry in 1974, the MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant in 1994, the Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters in 2006, and finally, the Griffin Trust for Excellence in Poetry's Lifetime Recognition Award in 2010.
Adrienne Rich's poetry used a formalist structure in her early writings, which fed into the restrictions of women as she tied herself down to those constraints, meaning she was not free to express her ideology. Over time, her works became more experimental and politically charged. This led to her being deemed a radical. The following three poems will be used as examples to highlight her themes, writing style, and perspective evolution as she progressed in her career. The following literary works will be used as examples of this progression. Aunt Jennifer's Tigers is an early poem from Adrienne Rich. Within the text, the reader can see how literature was her form of expressing her criticisms on society's downplay of women. The embroidered tigers in this poem are proud and unafraid, a representation of freedom and power animals have as they are independent and wild. Aunt Jennifer cannot attain this independence, however, as she herself is fragile and, more importantly, a woman. This is because she is in a marriage where she's expected to be domestic to her domineering husband. The poem follows a more formal structure, holding back Rich from showcasing her ideas and writing potential to its fullest extent, as she is limiting herself by not writing in a free structure. Though over the course of her career, this would change.
The next literary work we will be looking at will be Diving into the Wreck, Diving into the wreck uses metaphors to relay messages of self-discovery and transformation. A diver, in which we can assume can be a representation of woman, swims into the wreck of a ship, which one can also safely assume to be the systematic oppression that women are facing, which is a symbol for revisiting personal history, or in this case, the damages caused by that wreck, or damages caused by the systematic oppression or the patriarchy that women were contained under. The narrator is involved in the process of discovering submerged, or in this case, hidden truths that are meant to be societal and personal. The imagery within this poem uses a shipwreck as a representation for systematic oppression, as mentioned before. The tone is very serious and melancholic, as to show that the process of self-discovery, especially within a society that oppresses you, is not as easy as one might think. In addition, compared to Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, the poem is free in structure, meaning she did not constrain her ideas to follow a predetermined structure that would limit the impact of her writings. And this works very well for the message that um, Rich is trying to relay, because she is trying to spread the message that women should strive for liberty, strive for freedom, and as well as discover who they truly are, while the writing structure is free. Uh, it is not limited. She is not constraining herself into at the time, male-dominated space. She is distinguishing herself, showing her independence through not only the words within her writings, but as well as the structures that she uses for those same writings. The next literary work we'll be looking at is Power. In this poem, Rich revolves her message around women and their lack of power in historical context, and even at the time, uh, it could also be said that they also lacked power. She uses phrases such as blood on stones to create an image in the reader's hand around the power men have had and the chaos that has brought throughout time. In this case, chaos could be a representation of war, bloodshed, and more. Um, the poem aims to break down the system of power, or in other words, the patriarchy, and reinvent the system to have the voices of women to be heard. And the poem's structure and the poem's message also go hand in hand, as the freeform structure means that Rich is not limiting herself to the expectations of others, while the message itself is telling women to break free from the expectations set by a male-dominated structure, just like her last work. However, this poem is well known for having a lack of rhythm, even by her own standards. Not rhythm, sorry, rhymes, and even by her own standards. This is meant to highlight the progression from her. What I'm saying is meant to highlight the progression from her first works to now, as despite the message being the same, the structure behind them has changed by a lot, very noticeably even. And at this time, she was now considered a radical, as she believed radical feminism to be the best way for women to gain recognition or awareness around their cause. Um, but yes, in the end, Power was very influential. A very influential text in the fight for women's rights. Uh, it opened the eyes of many, changed the views of many as well. And I do believe Rich had um, a good perspective, in the sense that I do believe that radicalism in this case was needed her for her message to just have that much more impact. In summary, Adrienne Rich is one of the most influential poets to have contributed to the feminist and gay rights movements. Her writings contributed so much to the causes due to her themes and message around gender inequality, women's liberation, queer rights, and even more issues of the time, being executed through complex writings that made the readers of the time and even readers now think profoundly about the issues she addressed in her writings. And I do believe that her radicalist view really helped with making those issues just much profound in the eyes of those who read her works. The following are the sources we used. We thank you for listening, and we used 5 sources, 3 of them of which were scholarly and 2 biographies. Yes, again, thank you for listening and have a nice day.